Committee members talking, that's good. So I'll just introduce us and say that we're live streaming.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Sproat Lake Community Affairs annual general meeting. We're going to be going over the regional district budget and services this evening. I'd like to acknowledge that we're coming from the traditional territories of the Hupecheset and Tichat First Nations, and happy to be here. And I'm glowing. Oh, a little bit.
You can closer to me if you want.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. And tonight we're live streaming. So this is the first for the regional district to be here, live streaming. I don't know that any other meetings have been live streamed from here, but the community association has Wi-Fi here now. So it's to our benefit to be able to do this and bring this to everyone. So I'm not sure who's at home watching. If you're there, welcome also. There's a sign-in sheet if anybody would like missed when you came in, if you wouldn't mind signing in just so we know who's here. There's also a basket there to put your name in for a draw. We've got a sprinkler for your roof for fires and a couple smoke detectors that will draw. You have to be here though. So anyways, I'd like to introduce today, we've got some presenters for you. So with the regional district, thank you to Danielle Salon, the administrator, CAO of the regional district. Terry Fong is the Minister of Finance. We have Rich Toulouse is our IT specialist. We also have Mike Cann here with the fire department, and Joe Lamoureux is with the Sproat Lake Parks. We also have Renee Lepercier is my alternate. We also have from Mosaic, Colin Cosman and Frank Limshu. So these are our presenters tonight. So also we have Don Paul here with the Sproat Lake Property Owners Association. So just recognizing everybody here. And thank you all for coming. So now I will pass this over to the regional district and staff, and I believe Terry's leading us off. Thanks. Terry, wrong.
Good. Ready to move?
Oh, sorry. Let's get rid of this chair. I feel like it's better.
Thank you. So as Penny mentioned, I'm the Chief Financial Officer at the Regional District, and we are in the middle of our financial planning process for the 2026 to 2030 time period. And so we're here tonight to give you an overview of what's included in our plan. Next slide, please. Perfect. So each year we have to do a 5-year financial plan. The draft is on the website. Each service is independently budgeted for expenditures, revenues, transfers in and out of reserves. And we have a fairly tight timeline here. We have to be adopted by March 31st. So we're in the middle of our roadshow right now. As a regional district, we have different financial rules than a municipality. Each of our services is solely independent, so we cannot transfer money from fire to parks or landfill to airport. Each one is considered its own entity. And areas such as Sproat Lake are only charged for the services that you are provided. So you're not charged for Bamfield Water or Bamfield Fire Protection. The allocation of costs has to be including staff time. So there's quite a significant calculation into staff time that is provided to each of the services, which is included in those costs. And our budgets must balance. Oh, look at that delay. Interesting. Okay. So the development of the financial plan, we start by looking at our operating costs of our existing services. The directors adopted a strategic plan that was for the 2024 to 2027 years. So we're continuing to try to implement the initiatives outlined in that. We present the initiatives to the board each year kind of as a business case, or what we call a proposed initiative case, so that we can try to break out and talk about the new things that we kind of are hearing from either the community or the board and figuring out which ones we're going to include in the financial plan. We have asset management plans for all of our services with assets and continue to find ways to close the infrastructure gaps that exist in nearly all, if not all, of our services. And then we try to adopt a financial plan that balances what the board is wanting to do with the resources that we have. It is challenging in a regional district. You have 13 different areas or jurisdictions all looking for different things. So it's quite a balancing act to make sure that everyone's needs are attempting to be met. This is one of the ways that we get engagement. We also have our website. The financial plan is loaded there for you to look at. We also have a new engagement hub on our Let's Connect page that encourages you to ask questions if you have any. And you can also send an email to budget@acrd.bc.ca if you have any further questions. That strategic plan that I was mentioning earlier, this is kind of the last year. Once we have a new board, we will start the strategic planning process again with them. So we'll budget probably with this plan for 2027 and then be looking for a new plan. But our current plan has planning for living or for a resilient and livable region, managing our assets and infrastructure, partnerships and communication, and advocacy and service as our main 4 categories. There are sub initiatives under each of these headings. And in terms of our financial plan this year, it is approximately 38.8 million. That's the tax component of that plan is about 13.6 million, including the hospital district requisition. We always talk about the hospital district at the same time because it's the same taxpayers and the same region, but it is a separate legal entity, and we will cover it a little bit more later. In terms of taxation increase overall for the region at 7.32%, we'll talk about Sproat Lake specifically later, but the tax increase is about $928,000, and we'll try to outline the majority of those reasons today. We also are anticipating about $18.3 million of grant funding for both operational and grant projects. Some of that is already confirmed and we know we're getting it. Others, we have applications in or are about to submit applications for some of those works. In terms of regional planning, there's a lot of regular planning applications that go through this, especially related to ALR and subdivision referrals. However, it's also where we talk and focus on agriculture. So in 2025, there was a lot of work done with the Agricultural Development Committee and the Coastal Foods Roundtable. There was the development of an agriculture water plan, which we're now looking to see if and how we implement those recommendations, and also a West Coast and Alberni Valley food security emergency plan. In 2026, there's climate adaptation planning for the West Coast region in conjunction with the Clay Plot Biosphere Trust. And then we continue to look for funding to do a climate plan for the Alberni Valley. Next, please. In terms of rural area planning, this is where the applications for numerous things occur, but also for what you would know as your official community plan updates, your housing needs report, and there was a development approval process. So kind of a look in at our processes and the changes that the provincial government have and how we can better serve the community. So that was done in 2025, and now we're looking to implement those recommendations. So very active service in last year. So it is planning for all the rural areas at the same time. There were 65 applications received during 2025 and 34 APC meetings held. That doesn't mean 34 Sproat Lake APC meetings, but 34 in general. We're expecting about the same level of activity it to be occurring in 2026. And in terms of potential lots, these are at various stages of discussion, but the planning department is estimating a potential of 233 new lots in the region that are kind of at that application stage. The official community plan. So this one is underway. This is your OCP area. There has been some engagement done originally, and now they're at the draft the plan stage. Next slide for me. So it's kind of a 5-stage process, and they've done the initial project initiation, background research, and they are at the create the plan phase. Watch for community engagement to occur in the spring on the draft plan, as they'll be out and about trying to get some input onto the draft plan. Again, if you're wanting to look for updates, you can subscribe to updates on their Let's Connect page. And they would just like me to do a shout out and thank you for everyone who's participated in the outreach to date. And there is definitely more opportunities coming this spring to have your say in where your community is headed. In planning, there is also a bylaw enforcement service. There were 64 new enforcement files opened in 2025. And this is not just for unsightly premises, but also has an animal control bylaw and a noise control bylaw in the Sproat Lake area, burning bylaws related to open burning and wood stoves, and soil removal bylaws. Building inspection was down slightly during the year. There was 41 new building permits issued for new homes, construction value of about 30 million. And there's about 98 building permits that were actually kind of issued. So it's how it flows through. Similar years expected for 2026, we think, but again, that is all up to the applicants and who's building in the area. Are looking to implement those recommended changes as part of the development approval process to improve efficiency, but also transparency. Sproat Lake area also contributes to the Alberni Valley Regional Airport. The taxes this year for this service are stable. The focus for 2026 is trying to get the equipment shelter. We've been trying for a couple of years to find some grant money for an equipment shelter so that we can actually house some equipment at the AVRA and keep it long term so that it's not out in the weather all the time. We are continuing to look for grant funding for that. We also continue to want to generate revenue from leaseholders and trying to remove it from the tax requisition wherever possible. So one of the ways that we see to do that is to expand the one taxiway network, and it would open up a new area for future lease lots. So the design aspect of that is going to be done this year. Continues to be some obstacle limitation surface, so like the angles off of the runway. There continues to be some work to be done to clear any of those obstacles this year, and then hoping to do some crack sealing and runway surface repairs. Sproat Lake Community Parks. So there was a Dixon Park dock and boardwalk condition assessment completed in 2025. And my understanding is that there is some work that needs to be done and some significant costs that may be faced in doing that. And it is something that the Sproat Lake Parks Commission, I think, is going to be discussing this spring based on a number of different options and where they kind of want to go. So just to show you, that kind of is the existing walkway out to the water, and not really working from a risk management and liability point of view. So needing to kind of address that infrastructure. There was also some work done to complete the design of the Faber Road pathway between where it ends currently to get to Cougar Smith Park. There's some challenging areas, including it's going through private land at this point, and therefore the cost estimate for that last section is pretty high. So again, something that the Sproat Lake Parks Commission continues to discuss to figure out how and if they're going to move forward. And then another initiative that has been brought forward is the Lot 950 Crown Line acquisition investigation. I don't exactly know how to describe where Lot 950 is. Maybe Director Cote can chime in.
So Lot 950 is at the end of Timber West. So it's Beer Camp Beach. It's got a little bit of beachfront, but it's a big square lot that goes up to the highway. We're looking at possibly making it a community park. There would be access to the water on the beach, so something that the park's been looking at for a number of years.
Yeah, so that's another one that's just kind of in that design or preliminary, I'd say, feasibility stage. And then Great Central Lake. So we have some grant funding to address some of the concerns out of the Great Central Lake boat launch. It is in need of an upgrade for sure. So looking to move that forward and improve the safety and access for that area. Regional parks. So the regional parks also has the log train trail. This is paid for by the entire region. And the log train trail is probably the focus of this service this year. There was a motion made by the board last year to make the regional district portion of the log train trail multimodal, meaning like permanently permit like quads and ATVs. But there's some challenges with the agreement with MOTT in terms of getting there. So we have to do some license of occupation updates before we can get there. So continuing to work through that process, the board is still aligned to want to move in that direction, but we need an enforcement management plan before the province will talk to us about changing our lease and continuing to do some signage and asset management improvements in that area as well. Sproat Lake Marine Patrol. So this service has been very lucky to have had a grant from the federal government for, I'm going to say 15, maybe 20 years, like a long time. It's been a significant period of time. However, they have stopped this Transport Canada grant as of right now. They're not saying it's never coming back, but it's not an open opportunity. So we're having to kind of regroup on this service right now. So the board is committed to running the service at the same service level as last year by using our reserves. That is definitely a short-term strategy and not sustainable over time. But in the meantime, we continue to look for different ways to fund this service. So we're employing youth, so there's lots of opportunities in that sometimes. So we're trying to find that. There's environmental components of this service, so focusing on that. There's education. So trying to just see if there's another way we can fund it. The federal government grant used to fund about 65% or 75% of this program. So a substantial loss of about $65,000 from them this year. So hoping they'll restart that program for us soon, but it will run as normal in 2026. Solid waste management, they have just started an organics pilot project. I did bring some paperwork over on that far table to do organics in the rural areas by like a drop-off system to see what they have. So there is some of that info over there. In terms of that, other things for the landfill is continuing to try to react to the changes at the provincial level. For example, they just handed down a new landfill gas regulation that's upping the bar for managing our landfill gases. So trying to figure out what that means for our landfill and installation of gas capturing, I don't want to call it equipment, gas capturing systems, I guess it would be. Next page.
Also,
There's another slide on it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, we continue to try to get tenure of that landfill. We do not have tenure. We're on a 5-year, I think we're on year 3 of a 5-year occupation of that site. And so we are working very closely with the Sproat Nation in a landfill working group to continue to collaborate on how we could possibly move forward together and hoping that the province will give us tenure. It's kind of crazy because the landfill, we have to close it and operate it for 100 years after we close it, but we can't get anything more than a 5-year cycle right now. So continuing to work through that obstacle with them. Custom transit. So custom transit's been a topic discussed by the board quite significantly. There's increased costs in this service this year. There was an expansion of hours in 2025 that saw Saturday service be introduced, but it's also BC Transit's implementing new dispatch software, and we had another vehicle lease come into play. So quite significant costs for this area. And it has the board and the directors questioning if the cost apportionment, so how the costs are divided by the areas, is the best model. That's a really tough political conversation that we're going to hear a lot of, I think, moving forward, whether we're talking aquatics, transit. The model that was created by the province in the early 70s maybe isn't the best model anymore. However, it's very hard to change the model. But in your area where your land assessments are quite a bit higher than your neighbors, you're paying more per household for some of these services. So continuing to try to have those conversations at the board, but a really tough political decision, because when someone's costs are lowering, someone else's costs are rising. So that's not an easy scale to move. And I'm just going to talk about this first slide, and then I'm going to pass it over to Chief Ken. So I just want to talk about fire departments in general, and then the chief will talk about the department out here. But we really continue to work on recruitment and retention for all 3 of our departments, as well as the asset management plans. The cost of apparatus in these fire departments is escalating at a cost way higher than inflation, as the truck builders for the most part, kind of have like a monopoly. There's very few of them now. And so these costs are just rising. And then there's mandatory years of service for these vehicles. So it's making it very challenging to keep those costs at a reasonable level. So continue to work to do that. But that is just another aspect of these fire departments that is challenging. And then I'll let Chief Cam talk about, and you have to stand over to us.
Thank you very much, Terry. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mike Cann, Fire Chief, Sproat Lake Fire Department. I've been with Sproat Lake Fire Department for 32 years, and we have two past members in attendance, Glenn and Joe. So give you a quick rundown of last year. We had 179 calls for service. We had 3 structure fires in our area, 2 car fires, 2 brush fires. AMA calls are 53. Those are AMA calls, whether it's to Cherry Creek, Beaver Creek, or the city, mostly to the city. All 4 fire departments help out in the valley. It's quite a nice working relationship we have. It's an incredible experience for our members. We get to go and see a lot of fires, do a lot of action, and it's nobody's homes in our area that are lost for that. So that's great. Medical calls are 65%, hydros 9, MBIs 16. Duty investigations, that's usually 1 or 2 people go on those. That's 22. In 2024, we responded to 73 calls. Next slide, please. The highlights of 2025, we celebrated 60 years in service. The fire department was incepted the same year that I was born. We ordered our 2nd tanker to upgrade our equipment. We unfortunately, with FUS and insurance grading, for some reason, our tanker accreditation, our trucks are only recognized for 20 years. Most other departments that have hydrants are able to extend their service for an extra 5 years, but we're not able to. We had 2 members go up to the Wesley Ridge fire and help out that the first night that it started burning. They saw some extensive action up there. Luckily, there was no homes lost. We also had 3-member crews stand up and take care of initial attack for a while in town here because there was no BC Wildfire Service people. Other highlights for 2025 were Climb the Wall, which is coming up again this year, but we had 5 members last year go up and raise quite a bit of money for Lung Association. That's the Sheridan Wall Center in Vancouver. And we had an incredibly successful Halloween event at number 2 Hall on Faber Road last year. And I think for the Climb the Wall this year, they raised the first night, they raised $500. So that was pretty good. Next slide, please.
It just delays a bit. There.
What's that?
It just delays a little bit from.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
FUS water shuttle accreditation. I was at the fire chiefs last year and a gentleman, he found out where I was from and he goes, "Oh, you guys are the first fire department in Western Canada to get the tanker accreditation." I said, "No, Arrington was, but there's for some reason expired for a short time. They have it again, but Sproat Lake has maintained it for 20 years now. This year, in the fall, we'll be celebrating that. It gets homeowners a significant savings on their insurance that rivals the same as any fire department that has a water system or career department. Even we get the same rate as the city of Port Alberni with their career department. So did everybody here know what it is involved in the tanker accreditation? Okay. So what we have to do is we have 5 minutes to set up, start flowing water at a rate of 200 gallons a minute. And we have to be able to achieve that for 2 hours without losing water. And we have to, every 5 years, we get tested on that. So we practice that 3 or 4 times a year to make sure we do that. That's the biggest, most important thing that the Sproat Lake Fire Department does. Move on now. Okay. For the forestry, as we never really worried about it before, we used to have the Mars in town until 2000 and actually I think 2015 was the last year they were on contract, but now we're getting more and more reliant on local fire departments. And last year, these fires got a little too close for comfort, so a few years ago, Sproat Lake Fire Department, we were able to get, what was that grant called?
Equipment, the volunteer fire department equipment and readiness grant or something like that?
Yeah, so primarily through the grant that we've got in the last 3 years, we've got 3 Wajax pumps in this trailer. We've got around 7,000 feet of hose. We've got a whole bunch of sprinklers. This is a home protection kit or neighborhood protection kit. We're ready to go. We can, it's not as big as what forestry has, but you know what, if there's a fire happening in our neighborhood, we're able to get set up, get flowing water until they get here. They're probably going to be a half a day to a day before they come to help us. So we're able to take care of ourselves. Well, in the picture with the tank in the back of the pickup truck, that's Global Medic. They donated that. They donated that to a whole bunch of fire departments in BC and Alberta. And I think they're even going further now with their donation. So that's probably, well, if you got a fancy one from Hub, that'd be at least a $25,000 unit in the back of the truck. We do cross training with BC Wildfire, the Thunderbird crew out at the airport. Oh, you guys formatted that. Color, I'm ready for that. The Harold Bishop Fire Hall expansion, we're adding an extra bay at least onto the side of the building. We need to get a tanker from one hall moved over. The lion's share of all of our people are at 3 hall, not over. Right now at this time, there's only 3 people that live by the Lakeshore Fire Hall that are in our fire department and able to respond. Any given time they're at work. I know the captain there, he plays slow pitch over on the other side of the island all the time. So we're really tight. We've got 3 trucks over there and we've only got 2 trucks over on the one on the highway where the majority of the people are. And also when people are at work coming from town, they're passing by that. So it makes sense to get more trucks over that way. It's just more convenient. Water system upgrade at Lakeshore Fire Hall. We haven't had potable water for quite some time. And now the pump is not working at all. So we have a 3,000 gallon water tank by the hall that we haul water to from the other place to keep that hall going. That'll be worked on this year. We're proposing to add a fireboat into our service. And that'll be this boat primary purpose will be to supply water. It'll have a pump upwards to 1,000 gallons a minute. Flow, we can go within 1,000 feet of the lake at least, depending on elevation. Each of our engines carries 1,000 feet of 4-inch hose. So you're able to flow 1,000 gallons a minute through that. The other things, there's other services that boat can do with whether it's water rescue a little bit and such. We have our open house coming June 14th this year. So we're not doing it on Father's Day because there's a huge car show in Parksville.
Welcome Beach.
Welcome Beach, yes. I think that's, public safety. I did have one more. Working smoke alarms save lives. You should have 1 smoke alarm on every floor of your house. You should have 1 smoke alarm in every sleeping room in your house. Make sure you have a fire extinguisher in your kitchen and by wood heating devices or garages. And have at least 1 carbon monoxide detector in your home. We have a sprinkler kit over on the table that we're going to be raffling off after this meeting, this presentation. This is a $199 value. It has 2 sprinkler heads. It's got 2 50-foot soft hoses and 2 gutter mounts. These things are designed that you put a paint pole, broom handle in, you clip it up on your gutter. Make sure you attach the hose before you do that. And then hook it up to your house. Turn the tap on and then it makes the, what the heck? Humidity.
Miss.
Yes, but there's I can't think of it. Anyways. I'm done. Any questions from anybody? Yes.
is,
What we're looking at right now would have a triaxle trailer for it. So it wouldn't be able to like service Central Lake. It wouldn't get them any kind of a real insurance savings, but it would be there. Same thing. It could go other places. Yes, on a trailer. And I'm glad that you asked that because I kind of skimmed over this. And the nice thing about that is we put in a couple of dry hydrants and we can put in more dry hydrants. But as you know, the steeper the ground, the longer that the properties are, we start looking into these might be $80,000 jobs if we were to do that. And I don't think the neighbors want every 6th lot that's those highway right-of-ways beside them. I don't think they want those cleared either. So the nice thing about the boat is it's going to be an all-weather boat. Anytime there's a structure fire that's close enough to the lake, that boat will be utilized, run over to wherever the fire is. You run a hose down from your engine and you get that water supply. That way it'll save us from having to tank water. When we start tanking water, especially if we're say over Lakeshore Hall, just down the road here, or at Faber Hall, we have to have an engine at the dry hydrant. So that's going to take at least 2 people, maybe 3 people to set that up and operate it. We're going to have at least 1 person in each tender hauling water to the location where the fire is. Then we're going to have to, at the top or the bottom of the driveway, whichever side of the road it's on, we're going to have another engine pumping out of a porta tank down to the engine that's fighting the fire. So we start looking at, what is that roughly? That's maybe 10 people before you even start worrying about fighting a fire. So if we're able to maybe use the water of the trucks first, park them, and then we're able to move all those people down to fight fire and not have to worry about all that extra equipment working.
where is this boat coming from? Has it been built?
We haven't got the
Mike,
boat
hold on
yet.
one second.
Oh,
Can you repeat because if you can repeat the question that you hear, people online can't hear the question. So it was just a comment made.
okay.
Yeah.
Where's the boat coming from? The boat hasn't been tendered yet. We're just working on the proposal, request for proposal now. So it'll be put out to bid. Yeah, I do know that CME in town, they built 7 years ago, 8 years ago, they built a boat for Banfield that we're very much mirroring. Yeah. Yes, Joe.
Is there another boat? Purpose built for that?
Is there another boat on the island purpose? I'm just
Yeah,
repeating
sorry,
now.
yeah.
I heard the Captain Lake might have.
Shawnigan Lake has a 21-foot boat. Ubo, I believe, just bought a boat. Like I said, we're mirroring the boat that Banfield had built for them 7 years ago. I know Northwest Side Fire Department, which is up in the Okanagan, and they've used their boat extensively. They had the White Rock fire probably 5 years ago where they lost at least 100 structures in their community and came right down on the thing. They have a pretty big boat. That's like a 32-foot boat. But
So this is not a new concept. This is something that's tried and true.
yeah, this is something that's tried and true, and it'll be a landing craft type boat with a door on the front. So if there is a forestry fire, the other nice thing about if we were to go with a boat, this boat would give us service to boat access only properties. So the people on Dog Mountain and whatnot, they could apply to the regional district and request fire protection. They'll be taxed for it, but they can. And I know that some people over there, they're paying like $15,000 a year for house insurance because there's no fire protection. So you could put a quad in it. You can load it up with forestry. I do know that I talked to a gentleman a couple of weeks ago who was here at Penny's volunteer thing, and he was concerned about if it was just a fire department boat, it wouldn't be available to do anything else. But I know that you go to Comox Lake and Cumberland Fire Department, they have a little trailer right at the parking lot where the boat launch and the campsite is, and it's Cumberland Fire Rescue. It's their hazmat response. So this boat could be used for a hazmat response. Those are things that are out of my scope. I can just present them. That's up to the politicians, the CAOs and whatnot, if those are services that we're able to do. I also think that a boat would be an incredible recruitment tool for Sproat Lake, which is something that we, for the halls, whether we're looking at Lakeshore, like, I don't know what's going to happen at Lakeshore in the next 5 to 10 years, right? And there's 400 lots that fall outside of what the main hall at the highway can service. So. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Len?
Is this,
Yeah. True cost of the boat's about 500, 550, and that puts a boathouse over it too. So if you look at what the ridiculous price that we're paying right now for tenders, it's actually cheaper than buying another tender. And it's probably less than half the price of what an engine's going to be. So.
yeah,
The nice thing about the boat is that it's not like the halls when you run suppression out of them. FUS doesn't say, oh, you need 10 people at a satellite hall. They have no manpower, but yes, we do have the people over in that side that have boat experience that can run it. It would be stationed at the end of Faber Road. Yeah. Thank you.
question about.
Depends how far we go up to $2. That's what we have to do. But we wouldn't go beyond that. We haven't laid out the full plan. We need to get an architect to work.
You consider really all things, which is already.
Yeah. Oh. We'd have to spend money on another engine, Glenn, so. Yeah, no, that would house a tender. If we have we need, every hall we have, we would need a frontline engine in. That's within the 20-year scope now. And really, if you're looking at adding another hall with the things that are possibly going to happen out Great Central Lake, and they're putting aside some property possibly, that would be where an expansion would make most sense.
I think it's important to note with the question about the cost of the expansion of the hall, with the budget of approximately 2 million, that's all grant funds.
There's only one.
I know there's only one taxpayer, but those are grant funds that we've received from the province. So it's not, you don't see an immediate increase in your taxes here locally. Fair enough. What's that?
Switch with you.
So E911 emergency telephone services, that is a service that we are part of a corporation that does a North Island 911, that's all our dispatch. So we're part of a board, and the board there has approved a 5% increase for this year. That 5% is focused on increasing its capital reserves, building a contingency reserve. And the reason for that is there's diminishing grant funds from other levels of government, province and federal government specifically. And so they want to make sure that their reserves are in good shape. And then also looking at contract renegotiations and making sure that they have the necessary revenues there. We have been working on preparation for Next Gen 911, and ultimately what Next Generation 911 is that it allows you to use all the features that are on your phone. So whether you're video streaming on WhatsApp, all of these various features that you have would be able to interface with 911 where currently you're calling. And that is mandated by the federal government. We originally needed to be ready by 2025, and the federal government gave everyone a 2-year extension to 2027. And the GIS work that was done and all that is under the new contract to have Next Gen 911. We needed to ensure that all addresses are accurate, length of driveways and other details around individual properties are documented for the purposes of emergency response. We do have an emergency and disaster management service, and with that, our key objectives continue to be to build up resources, ensure that we're prepared, do training, do volunteer recruitment, volunteer and staff training. We do a lot of consultation and collaboration work with First Nations, and we're consistently keeping up with the legislative changes and requirements that are handed down by the province. In 2025, we have 8 key grants that we were working under. So we had an Emergency Operations Center grant, which really focused on supplying equipment and training. We had Emergency Support Services grant, ESS, again, focused in on volunteer recruitment, support, and also on additional remote supplies. So on that one, we do have CCANs across the region that have cots and bedding and supplies in case of emergency. We did food security emergency plans and livestock emergency plans, and that was done through our planning department. And that enhances our existing plans, but also meets new legislation that requires that we be prepared and equipped to work with livestock owners to relocate livestock in the case of wildfire or other emergencies. We concluded the 2023-2025 Fire Smart grant. And though it took a little while, we are one of the last to receive another 2-year Fire Smart grant before the province ended that grant fund this year. So we do have 2 years coming on Fire Smart. And then with West Coast Emergency Cultural Awareness and Safety, that is also under a grant that every First Nations, every municipal and regional government received a small pocket of funds. And what we did here in the regional district is we collaborated with everyone, which took a while to get started. But now that that's started, we're actually working with the Shot and Bachessa here in the Valley, as well as Tlaloquid and Toquad and Etulasap on the West Coast. Banfield, obviously working with Ruwayat on building up this cultural awareness and safety plan. The philosophy behind it for us was just we can't just build up one plan because everyone has residents and members of different communities across the entire region. So we're working on enhancing everyone's plan in a systematic way. The Emergency Operations Center had 5 key activations. So we had a Banfield water break, we had a tsunami advisory, Wesley Ridge wildfire, we played a support role. And then, of course, we're all familiar with the Mount Underwood wildfire. And then that was followed by flood watch in December of this year, or last year, sorry. Our emergency support services have different activations. And so here they had 8 house fires, 1 apartment fire, 1 hotel fire, and 2 wildfires. And it's important to identify that difference. So when there is a house fire or an apartment fire and people have to be relocated, it's emergency support services that get activated through the fire department to provide that support. So the firefighters can focus on the fire at hand, and then emergency support services, which is primarily volunteers, come in to help people relocate to hotels and deal with insurance and whatnot. So we did have a team that deployed to the Wesley Ridge response because they needed some backup. We were a host community as a reception center and a cooling center. We have an air quality center that was open during Mount Underwood. We had group lodging for a number of different instances throughout the year, and then a resiliency center, which we opened up in Banfield. And so people understand the difference between a reception and a resiliency. A resiliency center is really more on a recovery side. So in the case of Banfield, where they had a prolonged power outage, there were people that needed laundry services, shower services, etc. And the resiliency center is what provided those additional amenities. Again, back with ESS, Emergency Support Services, the service that we provide or that we cover is the Beaufort, Beaver Creek, Cherry Creek, Sproat Lake, City, Port Alberni area. And we also have a memorandum of understanding with Bachessa First Nation. As I said, we do the volunteer management, recruitment, retention, and recognition, skill development, capacity building, resources, and training. One of the key areas in here that I also want to flag when we talk about that is we're often following the directives of the province in terms of legislative changes. So, for example, under ESS, A lot of things are now moving to a digital platform, which allows people to access remotely, but also to have access to direct deposits to their bank. So it's less onerous in terms of the process. But we also want to maintain a paper process because some people aren't comfortable with the online or don't have the ability to be online. And so it's training up in two systems and making sure that our local volunteers have that ability and that they also then have the resources behind that. And this is where some of these grants come into play, like purchase of laptops and tablets and whatnot, so we can actually deploy and provide those services in a remote fashion. 2026, we're looking at additional training, post-community receptions and tabletop exercises. And we do that in collaboration across the region. So this year, the larger training that we're doing is going to be in Tofino in early March. And encompasses both First Nations communities and local governments, municipalities, and regional district. We have training sessions to support vulnerable populations. And again, we're just always looking to strengthen capacity. Mount Underwood Fire, the emergency operations center there is that we run here in the Valley is in collaboration with the city of Port Alberni. And this deployment was way bigger than the resources we had. And so even though we had staff and volunteers from the regional district and from the city, we also had an immense amount of support from other areas on the island, like Beaumont, Courtney, and Nanaimo, Strathcona. And we also had some lower mainland all the way into Kelowna that provided some staffing support. It was an interagency collaboration. And one of the biggest challenges was the fact that we were trying to do messaging in step with other active emergency operations centers. So, for example, Tashat had their own emergency operations center. Wayet had their own emergency operations center. And so the coordination between those was important. But Cowichan Regional District also had an emergency operations center open and active for Dididat, and Dididat also had theirs. So when we were in the emergency operations center, there are upwards of 60 little boxes on those Zoom calls when we're doing the coordination calls. So it was quite a feat of coordination to try and stay in step. And those are the government agencies. And then Mosaic will speak for themselves, but they were a key partner in this in terms of navigating the roads, keeping information flowing, and helping control access at different points. So it's community partners like this that really make a difference. And all of the training that we do usually is linking up with these key community partners in advance of an emergency so that we can deploy rapidly and support each other when there's a need. And this was the case for Mount Underwood. I thought it was quite a good deployment, quite a good level of coordination. There's always room for improvement, and we're continuing to do our debriefing on that. But ultimately, it was complex because it was fire and road closures and a little bit of everything. So, and even when the fire was out, we were months managing a closed road and the multiple agencies because it wasn't a government road. There's private road, government road. There's different owners along the way. For 2026, we're going to continue to expand and strengthen those relationships, as I said, including training with multiple agencies. We are going to continue to enhance our volunteer management. A lot of it from the learning that we had through Mount Underwood. With prolonged emergency responses, what we found is you burn through staff quickly, you burn through volunteers quickly, and figuring out a way so that we can support both on an ongoing basis for an extended way is something that we're going to look at how we do schedules. We're also going to be taking a look at business continuity. What are those services in a prolonged emergency that we can stop without having an impact on the local economy, and take those staff resources into the OC? And what are those areas that we really don't want to stop? So we want to protect those staff and keep them going. And so a great example is building permits, right? You look at the local economy that's still working. People are still able to stay active in that way. But if permits aren't able to be processed, then you're impacting the economy beyond what the emergency is already doing. And those are those things that we got as feedback that we're trying to recalibrate on. There's going to be a focus on personal preparedness, and yeah, we'll jump into the grant initiatives. No, that's okay, the grant initiatives. So Emergency Support Services has another grant again on equipment and supplies. So we have a very large region, and the ability to strategically position these supplies in different areas is really important. Our Indigenous engagement with the cultural awareness and safety plan is a big factor for us. And it's not only about building collaboration within our emergency response plans, it's about building the relationship. So again, when the emergency hits, are we familiar with each other, and can we integrate faster than we did last time while being respectful of the different levels of authority and governments that are there? We will not, for example, speak on behalf of Hupachesset at the shot. That's for them. But we do need to integrate on the messaging and making sure we're consistent. Fire Smart is the other key part, and there it is. So we are bridging for another 2-year Fire Smart, and on that grant that's received from the province. This year, we're partnered up with Hueyat, City, Port Alberni, Hupachesset, and Tashat. So the program has grown from what it was in the previous 2 years. And with that, we do have additional staff that are covering a larger area. The advantage of working together is that typically each one of these areas would be applying on their own. Each one of those areas would have their own dedicated person. In this case, we have 2 for the 4 areas that are going to be working across the region. Last time around, we did 265 home assessments. We extended 38 residential rebates, which occur after the assessment when a property owner does work. We had 55 public engagement events, 45 critical infrastructure assessments. So that includes our water lines, our public buildings, etc. And we had 162 curbside pickup requests that were met. And just so you know, as a property owner, when you do Fire Smart work under the grant program, all those shrubs and brush that you end up collecting under this grant, we can come pick that up, chip it, and then dispose of it. With general government services, so general government services includes asset management, administrative services, HR, IT. There's our Alberni Clayoquot Health Network. We have development and enforcement and education around bylaws and policies. It's also the general supplies and equipment, application for grants, management of grant reports. We have building maintenance and special projects. In 2025, we did quite a bit of work on our bylaw and policy updates. Some of those were just out of our own interest and feedback from the community. Some are a result of changing legislation and making sure that we're staying in step. We did a lot of work around inclusive governance. And just so we know, I'll try and give a quick snapshot of what that is. Inclusive governance is under the provincial legislation that recognizes the title and rights of all nations, but particularly the non-treaty nations. We have a requirement under that legislation to make sure that all laws are in step with it. Now, part of that is taking a look at how it is that we could extend a seat, a voting seat and full participation into the regional board for a non-treaty nation. Currently, the legislation, the written legislation, only recognizes treaty nations and not the non-treaty. However, DRIPA legislation says that that needs to be adjusted. So we've been working with all the nations across the region and having some good dialogue on how that would work, and provided some feedback to the province as a result of that. There is no grant for 2026, but there is some ongoing work around apportionment there too. Because again, we're trying to build systems where if a nation participates, how would they be paying their, for example, what would their financial formula look like at a regional level? And so those are all important details to look at, while also respecting that they have a different governance structure than we do. And so we also have to make sure that we're able to meet the equitable employment initiative as well started. It's not complete yet. And then there was an exempt compensation review that was done in 2025. And that's part of the board's policy, where once a term, they do a review of exempt employees. And so they benchmark and do any adjustments based on that larger review. In 2026, we're going to be updating our procedures bylaw. We're looking at some records management assessment, some asset management software.
Agenda management.
What's that?
Agenda management,
Oh, sorry.
not asset management.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, agenda management. Thank you for that correction. We have ongoing IT cybersecurity. Every year we have to up our game in that one. We are going to be bargaining with QP this year, so it's a bargaining year for us. Their collective agreement ends in June of 2026. And then we have the Board Remuneration Review Committee, and similar to the exempt compensation review, that's done once per term. And the structure that we have for the ACRD is that their remuneration is reviewed in an election year. The board will make a decision because legally they are the only people who make a decision on their compensation, but the implementation will only be after the next election. So in theory, the people making the decision don't necessarily see the outcome of that decision. Some highlights for 2026, and these are under the special projects that don't belong to any specific service other than right now through general governance. So our phase 2 feasibility and the business case for a new administrative office for the ACRD. Primary care recruitment and retention is an area that is across the region of concern, and so we'll be doing some work there. The Transportation Committee will be advancing their next phase, looking for alternative routes to Highway 4. We are working with the Alberni Valley Drag Racing Association to find them a permanent long-term home. The Island Rail is, we've been working with the nations across the island, looking at Island Rail. And so that's coming to a conclusion this year, but there may be some subsequent steps and collaborative work with Tashat and Chesset in 2026. West Banfield dock feasibility is something that we are looking into because Transport Canada is looking to divest of that dock. And doing the feasibility doesn't mean that we will take the dock. It just means that we are going to equip the community for a good discussion around what it would look like. And if the community decides no, at least if a private sector member were wanting to take it, all that information is public, which equips us for good questioning, but anyone for doing their due diligence along those lines. Avra, which is our airport here in the Alberni Valley, we are working towards a memorandum of understanding and partnership with both Tashat and Chesset, similar to what we've done in 2024 with the Tlaloquet Nation and the Long Beach Airport on the West Coast.
It's kind of.
So, yeah. General elections are this year on October 17th. And for the elections, right now, we've identified the highest, the possible costs that we can foresee for running the elections. There's a lot of variability because we work with the school district, and the contribution the school district makes towards the elections will vary depending on whether or not a certain area has an election. So in some cases, an area may have somebody acclaimed. If there's only one person running, then there's no cost to that. And if there is no cost on our side, but the school board is running something, then the cost would be different because they would cover the lion's share of costs for the election work done in that specific area. So that's just an example of why it is you see high number to start. The number at the end may be different because the partners will contribute different amounts. With the Alberni Valley Aquatics Facility, we've been working for quite a few years on this one. In 2024, we identified a number of different options and costing options, and the community got an ability to sort of identify what their threshold tolerance would be and what type of pool they would like for a replacement. In 2025, we did an assessment on a renovation, and so with that now done, what we're looking at is the apportionment side. So if we were to create a regional service for aquatics, what area would be paying how much? And is that model something that's sustainable moving into the future? And so there are important discussions that we're seeing. We do not foresee a referendum in 2026, simply because when we start talking about apportionment and money and who's paying what, we think that we're going to need more than 90 days to dialogue that with elected officials and the community. So we're going to take 2026 to do that and likely hope to have everything packaged up for greater discussion in 2027. Sproat Lake Incorporation study. So the board has directed us to move forward with the grant application to do a study on incorporation for Sproat Lake area. Assuming we get that grant, then we would start doing that work. Starting point is going to be taking a look at what was done in 2007. But of course, it's been almost 20 years, so there'll be some work that has to be redone and quite a bit of consultation with the community to ensure that all the elements of an incorporation are clearly understood. And then once that study is complete, then we'd be talking about further steps towards how that incorporation, or if that incorporation would proceed. In 2007, the committee that was overseeing that process looked at the information and felt that it was prudent not to advance. That does not encumber you in any way now to explore and make that decision. And again, in 2007, it went through committee. Assuming we receive a grant this year, we would have a discussion with Penny prior to any elections, assuming we get the grant soon, just to talk about how we would structure that this time around to make sure that it's reflective of the dialogue to community. Regional hospital is a separate legal entity, as Terry said, but it is the same taxpayers across the region. It's want to flag that the West Coast General Hospital has significant renovations, and those renovations are complete, and the debt is also paid. Island Health did their minimum request this year, which is the $550,000, so that's what's in the budget. And we are planning on continuing to build our reserves at the 1.8 million, which is our standard requisition across the region. The hiccup that occurred this year is that we thought we'd be advancing with the Tofino Hospital renovations. And this year, the Ministry of Infrastructure has indicated that they were vetoing that project. So even though Health wanted to proceed, Infrastructure is saying no. And so they're at a standstill and have to redesign that. So that one's was a bit of a shocker because Tofino was under the impression, all the discussions we had up until about a month ago, everyone was with the understanding that Tofino was good to go, and now we're not. So there's going to be quite a bit of work to redesign that. Ministry felt the price was too high and that we need to revisit that. So that'll probably include quite a bit of dialogue with key stakeholders in the community on a redesign. Mary.
Yeah, so this just summarizes the financial impacts of all of them. So it goes by service. This is available online as well. Increase for Sproat Lake based on the draft is 7.34%. Your assessed value, average assessed value in the area, which probably sounds low to you if you live on the water side, but is about $910,000. It dropped ever so slightly from last year in terms of assessment across your electoral area. So the increase on the estimated $900,000 home is to be about $97. And I can load this presentation tomorrow morning onto our platform as well so that you can have it. And we are happy to answer any questions. If you are zooming in, if you could just enter them into, I think it's the Q&A section. Are you able, or the chat section, we will monitor that. And for those of you who ask a question from the floor, we will just repeat the question so that those on Zoom can hear it. So is there any questions about the rest of the financial plan? Yeah, leave this one. Yeah. It is, sorry, yeah, you have a lot of services out here. Yeah.
Possibly build down paper road there. That hasn't been approved or anything.
The walkway on Favor Road to go to.
That distance, has that money been approved to try and build that?
No, the design work has been done to, so he's talking about the part from Favor Road to Cougar Smith Park.
Yeah.
So that part has been designed just from Favor, like the existing Favor Road trail to that last little bit to get you to Cougar Smith Park. Is that the part you're talking about?
About optics down to the top there.
Oh, off Dixon. Oh, to the yeah. Yeah, no, so the Dixon Park is the question, and it's related to that ramp down to the wharf itself. No, that has not been approved yet. There will need to be something done probably within the next year and a half, now that it's been identified, but the Parks Commission is going to work through the options and make a recommendation to the board about how to proceed. Okay. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Is that?
So the question is about the Sproat Lake Fire Department, and it's a 10% increase, about $80,000. So continuing to try to build the reserves, there really is not enough reserve funding to be adequate to cover the costs of to replace the apparatus that is all there. So the requisition amount for the operating costs of the fire department is CPI or very close to CPI. But we are continuing to try to build that reserve fund as it is a large service with many capital infrastructure needs between the fire halls themselves and then the fire apparatus as well. Colin?
Yeah.
Sure. So the question is that there is a Sproat Lake, I'm trying to think what it's actually called on here. Oh, it's just under grant needs on here. But there's a Sproat Lake Community Association grant need that's by bylaw. It's for $12,000. It's been $12,000 since I think it was existence. The bylaw itself is basically, I wouldn't know exactly off the top of my head, but it's not Great Central Lake area. It's basically the residential area that surrounds Sproat Lake itself. No, just the lake itself, like, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
System the last 10 years, and why hasn't increased proportionally for that group?
Right. So the question is, why hasn't the amount increased as the number of parcels in the area increased? But so that bylaw is built in a way that it actually has a set dollar value maximum. So it says thou shalt not requisition more than $12,000. So as lots are added into the system, it's actually just reducing the amount that you're paying slightly. At the same time, there has been some lot line deletions, which obviously go in the opposite way. There has been a request from the Sproat Lake Community Association to try to increase that amount. There's also been some discussion about expanding the service area. Increasing the amount is easier than expanding the service area. If we want to add, say, Hector Road area or Great Central Lake into that bylaw, we actually either need a petition from the residents in that area, or we would need to conduct some sort of electorate assent process for those residents. To increase the amount that you pay per parcel, we can do that by bylaw, and it is on our list to get to, hopefully later this year, early 2027. Yeah, the number that you pay individually goes down. Yeah, yeah, no problem. Oh, is there? Okay, I'm just gonna take the online one and then I'll get to you.
Would you mind speaking to the 166% increase in electoral area administration, and what specifically is warranting this level of increase for this particular service?
Perfect. So the electoral area administration is actually the service that has the election costs in it. So we don't run the election for the city of Port Alberni or Tofino or Ucluelet. So that impact is in that electoral area administration. So we see that spike once every 4 years when there is a local government election. We have talked to the board in the past about building like a stabilization reserve fund so that that money would slowly be accrued over time and then used, but they have decided that they just like it better that the year that you're incurring the costs are the year that we're actually passing them along to the taxpayer. So you will see an offsetting decrease next year because that is a 1-year cost and it will go down until 2030, I guess, when the next election occurs. All right.
I had a question about the
That I don't know off the top of my head, so I will tell you it is,
Question?
oh, sorry. So the question was, what is the total cost of running the Vancouver Island Regional Library? Recognizing that the contribution from the Sproat Lake area is nearly $300,000. If we can skip that question, I will quickly pull up the budget for you and then I can answer that question and I'll let you take the next one if that works.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll circle back. It is an area that we have very little control over as in terms of establishing that budget. I will say that. The regional library or Vancouver Island Regional Library Board has an amazing volume of people on it. 38 people. So we're one vote out of that. And so at the end of the day, it has been a bit of a sore point in our inability to actually control costs in an effective way. And Penny has every year advocated for the fact that we're one of the only areas that pays into the library and yet has no library to show for it. And so it is a sore point, right? Like you're paying something to get nothing. I guess you're just helping others. Yeah, the library, yeah, the library system is a tough one to understand and get into, right? And it's just sort of, yeah. I did make reference to like the emergency 911, and even that one's a bit easier because it's a very small board and it's island centric. So a lot of the discussions, even though it is, well, not even whole island centric, it's sort of like mid to Northern Ireland. And it's a board that's composed of less than 10 people, right? So.
AI.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
See that in the down.
Still have there's a lot of information out there.
Yeah, here, Penny.
There's a lot of information about libraries, about what they do. Just because AI is there, the library system has also accentuated what people want from libraries is accentuated. They still want to go in, they don't want to pay, $30, $40 or whatever for a book. When they can get it from the library, they can do the downloads like on their tablets. They can go into libraries. There's all kinds of programming now, like you can learn a language, you can, there's just a ton of things that libraries do, and they support the school system at all levels. So I know my grandson uses the library weekly, like it brings home all kinds of books and games and you name it. They definitely have a need in the communities, but it is a very big cost and trying to pare that down. And especially we're the only ones that without bricks and mortars, but we do, I know there's a lot of people in the community that do utilize the library. I've seen them there. So, yeah, and that's nothing that we can get out of. But that brings me around to.
Can I kind of circle back? So it's 33 million is their budget and 31, almost 32 million of that is levies, like to local governments to collect that.
There's very little provincial or federal government grants that come to libraries. It's very low. We keep lobbying.
Yeah, so it's, yeah. So we include Powell River, like Cafet area, right, Penny? Like that area, like a bit of the Sunshine Coast is in ours, but it does not include the Victoria area itself. So it's like the rest of Vancouver Island and then that little bit of the Sunshine Coast.
Up to Haida Gwaii. Like it's pretty expansive.
So it is divided based on, so they requisition all of the areas, 50% based on population and 50% based on land and improvements of like all the participants across the region or across their whole service area. Yeah, yeah.
So that brings me around to the way that we're taxed. So the local governments have been really pushing for legislative reform. And that would give us a different ability of way to tax everybody. The way that we are taxed now is one of two ways, either a parcel tax or by assessment based. And I don't believe we can really do anything more than that.
No, we can divide costs between areas. So if there's multiple areas, we can develop formulas for apportionment. So dividing costs between like what the city pays in Sproat Lake or Tofino, we can divide it that way. But when it comes to taxing the homeowner, we have a parcel tax, we can do improvements to only tax, a land only tax, a frontage tax, but those are the only tools in the toolbox for taxation.
For tax. Yeah, but our budget obviously has a significant portion that is through levies, right? So paying for your user fee, whether it's at the landfill, whether it's for water, in different services, there's different collection mechanisms outside of just taxation.
So things like this year, seeing the custom transit increase of $20,000, really wanting to make a change here. And there's other areas that want changes too, to the way that we're taxed on different services and taking a look at that. So, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
That number's pretty high too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the process there, we're going to bring a report back to the board in terms of the process for revisiting that service. It is more complex than some of the services we have in existence because it's through the province with PC Transit. There's agreements in place and there's structures there that we have to navigate. So rather than shoot at the hip and say, this is how we think you can do it, we want to make sure that we're doing our research and coming back with what the lay of the land looks like in order to open up that file and take a close look at it. So, but certainly Penny has articulated very clearly the fact that she's not in agreement with that amount. And the challenge is, of course, that we're bound to it for this year for sure, but hopefully we can take a closer look in future years. That's what we want to explore, right? Like in most services that we have in the regional district, there's a process for opting out. It's usually a multi-year process and we have to go through steps, right? And so we're like, since the question's been raised, we're not familiar enough about the transit service agreement with the province. And so we don't want to make any false promises and we'd rather just make sure that we're doing our due diligence and reporting accurately around that.
That's just one thing in this budget. The regional district is really taking a good look at everything and keeping the costs as low as we can. When we're in contracts with different organizations, we're tied in, but staff are doing due diligence and really looking into how to keep the costs low and work within the systems.
The bus service that was proposed, that's the normal.
Oh, which bus service?
I think the question is about the conventional bus service that was originally proposed to Sproat Lake. That is not being discussed at the board table at this time. There has been some preliminary discussions, and I think there might be a bit more to do on that this year about really the push right now in the community is people are wanting a connection between like the city of Port Alberni and the other side of the hump to try to connect into the transit system that is part of the regional district of Nanaimo that comes all the way, it comes up to Qualicum, doesn't it? All the way to Qualicum Beach. So that's really the only portion of transit that we're really talking about at this time. The Sproat Lake has gone by it as this part of the 3-year planning with BC Transit.
Once you get to the eastern side, like from Qualicum Beach, you can go to Nanaimo. From Nanaimo, you can extend all the way down to, or extend upwards, sorry. The upwards. That's a good question. I was looking downwards towards Duncan and whatnot, but upwards towards Comox, I'm not sure.
I think they're working on that section as well, but if they haven't done it already, but yeah, you can definitely get all the way from like Qualicum to Victoria on BC Transit now. So there's some interest for numerous reasons to make that connection. So that's No, it's just a preliminary discussion and transit kind of leads that and then they'll come back to us with their findings as to what they think and what they hear from the community and costs and stuff.
Just with the fact that there's two provincial parks on the other arm already, why don't the district want to look at expanding into another?
So the question is, because we have two provincial parks already on Taylor Arm, why would the regional district be wanting to look at lot 950 as a park option? Sure.
Gonna do it there too.
Yeah, lot 950's been looked at a lot. There is no park. The Beer Can Beach has been utilized by people for years, forever, for as long as I've lived at the lake. So they're used to going there. People from town have been out there. The kids used to, when I was a kid, they'd go out there and jump off the rocks there into the lake. It makes sense because of the upland people. If you can develop a spot for people to go swim that has services, because we don't want to be sending people to all of the road accesses. So it's for the people that live upland, mainly.
It's also been suggested that should there be a fire down there are in any of those places, there is no exit from there. So if we could have flyer on 50, there's already somewhat of a city road from the highway down to the bottom, which would give access to fire equipment to come down and people to get out from that place. If we can get it.
What's the estimated cost?
We don't have one.
You know, have
That's all that's going to be done this year is just to look at what that would look like and what those costs would be.
Sorry, the question was, what are the estimated costs? Feels like a Jeopardy game right now, sorry.
What's the total amount of grants for cost the regional district is to apply?
Great. Yeah, so
Oh,
the question is about how much grant money we are currently applying for and what is our cost of applying for those grants. So I think there's about 18.3 million that's either applied for or in progress. We ran 52 grants in 2025 of varying different sizes. Obviously, the project themselves are ran by whoever is responsible. Like if it's a landfill project, it's landfill staff that's actually running the project. We do have a half-time FTE that's a grant coordinator who just is like in charge of meeting all the deadlines and doing all the applications and applying for them. So, but then there's also other support staff, obviously, that are helping to support these grants, like the projects that are attached to these grants. It's probably estimated cost maybe 60,000 a year. You're welcome. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Perfect.
Is it Colin next,
it?
or-
Yeah, Colin.
Oh,
So we're lucky to have Colin Cosman and Frank Lynch here.
yeah.
There you go.
Right, there you go.
Can you open here?
Sure.
Still.
No, that's okay. It's sort of,
First next year.
there's a lot of information, so really useful just from my perspective as well. So I think the presentation's coming up here. So yeah, thank you for having Mosaic here tonight. My name's Colin Cosman. I'm manager of community relations with Mosaic for the last 5 years. And as Director Cote mentioned, Frank is with me here as well. He's manager planning at Couverton. Next slide, please. So just want to cover a few things off here, cover off Mosaic overview, talk a little bit about strategic transformation, sustainability, and wildfire management, and then also cover community partnerships and recreation. Slide, please. So who we are, Mosaic is 100% Canada owned. Our owners are basically based in British Columbia and throughout Canada, so certainly Canada owned. We operate throughout Vancouver Island, the mainland coast, all the way up to Haida Gwaii. Certainly work throughout a number of different communities, including the Alberni Valley. We have 2,000 people involved with forestry operations, both our direct staff and contractors. And then we serve generally over 50 mills throughout the coast. And when those mills aren't interested in our volume, that volume can be surplused and sent to our international customers. Next slide, please. So proud to support BC companies of all sizes throughout Vancouver Island and beyond. There's some big numbers here on this slide, but really want to highlight the companies that we do provide work to. And I'll tie it here to the Alberni Valley, just a few different larger contractors that do work for us. We have lots of staff that are based in Port Alberni as well, but Sitka Silviculture has a lot of employees here. They're mainly involved with reforestation and tree planting. The Shook Limited Partnership works for us, so they're Sishot owned, and they're a relatively new company, but they're involved with some of our harvesting activities. Certainly with the recent harvest we had off the Ash Main, they were the primary contractor there. Ryder Contracting is also another big Port Alberni company. They can have upwards to 80 employees. So certainly a bigger contractor that we have building road for us. Coastal Bridge and Construction, they're another Port Alberni company that are relatively large and involved with road construction, bridges, harvesting, you name it. And then the last one I'll mention is the Mount Sicker Group. So tying it again to the valley here, they run our China Creek Trial Resort. Next slide, please. So Indigenous partnerships, just really want to highlight our PAIR certification. So that's Partnership Accreditation in Indigenous Relations, really guides how we work with Indigenous groups in the different areas throughout the coast. Part of that is economic reconciliation and contract opportunities, also memorandums of understanding with different nations. So for here, we have MOUs with the Didadat, the Hawaiiat, the Uchequaset, the Hafitchstat. So lots of work in that space. You see the photo on the right of the slide here. This is a partnership we have with the Hafitchstat First Nation at the new, now a few years old, Loon Lake Campground. So that's the Hafitchstat cultural kiosk. So really proud that we're able to work with them and support just this site and them being able to tell their story there. So newer 27 site campground now. We also have the Mitush site as well, which is I think around 80 or 90 sites. Under the PAR certification and what we do, with different Indigenous groups, we provide youth funding for different education programs, cultural log donations, firewood, and training opportunities. So lots of different things. Those are just examples. Next slide, please. So this is something new, strategic transformation for Mosaic. We're certainly evolving and diversifying as a land manager and management company. The timberlands profile has really been our core business, but we're also involved with real estate. As I mentioned, Frank is part of Coubertin here. So certainly that's a business stream for us, but we're also looking at opportunities in renewable energy, Natural capital, so certainly carbon sequestration, watershed services and biodiversity offset. So certainly looking at opportunities there. Last thing I'll touch on is recreation and access. So that's certainly important part of our business and how we work with communities and balance community use and stewardship on our land base. So have a little bit more information on that, but certainly driving at what we do and the opportunities we're looking at from our land base. So sustainable forestry management, number of different things come into play here. So professionals certainly oversee the activities on our private managed forest lands. Those can include professional foresters, biologists, engineers, hydrologists, and others on our land base. So that really guides, how our activities happen on the land base. We have independent third-party certification with sustainable forestry initiative certification. So really key part of what guides our activities. And I also want to mention, a big part of sustainability for us is reforestation and planting trees. So on an average year, we plant around 9 million seedlings. Those come from, the seed generally comes from our Mount Newton seed orchard in Sydney. So that's been operational since 1979. So key part of sustainability. And then, of course, on our land base, we have acts and regulations and other things that guide what we do. So watershed management, certainly protecting water quality is central to our forest management practices, sustainability commitments, and our community partnerships. Mentioned professionals and water quality monitoring. So certainly do a lot of that on our land base, along with science, guiding what we do. But lots of collaboration here with communities through partnerships with Indigenous groups, local government and regional governments, and provincial governments for that matter. But just a couple of things I want to touch on here. The photo on the upper left is field tour we did with the ACRD last year. Director Cote, a few of the staff from the ACRD came with us for a day and looked at different sites in different areas, some drinking watersheds, China Creek, Dryland, Soar, a couple rec sites and other areas. So certainly a great opportunity to get out into the field and talk about forestry and our business. We also do, presentations. We work closely with the ACRD Agriculture Committee. So the image on the lower left there is a presentation we did last year with a lot of folks from Beaver Creek and Cherry Creek and a few different groups from the Sproat Lake community. So lots of work there. And then certainly sharing notification of activities and information with communities when we're starting up with our operations. Next slide, please. Mosaic wildfire prevention and response. So lots of conversation about that tonight. We take extensive measures to prevent fires on our land base, but also to be prepared to fight fires when they occur. 2025, certainly unfortunate to see the big fires we did on Vancouver Island. I think some of the biggest we've seen in 100 years. But unfortunately, a lot of those are public caused, and that comes into play with our operations and how we manage access on our land base and manage fuels on our land base and access for our crews and equipment as well. But fortunately, Mosaic has a partnership in protection with the BC Wildfire Service. So certainly that was a key piece of the Mount Underwood fire and making sure that we have resources to respond to those kinds of events. In any given summer, we have over 100 water tenders on our land base. All our staff are trained in firefighting, along with our contractors as well. And then we work with a lot of local government and regional government in fighting those fires as well. So lots of work and effort there. Yeah, I think that's all I want to cover with this slide. So communications and engagement. So we had at least one harvest in the ash area between Faber and Sterling Road this year. But lots of communication goes into play before we do start our active operations. So certainly sharing our plans with the Sproat Lake Woodland Society, that can happen sometimes a year or even more in advance. Certainly sharing information with the ACRD and Director Cote. So sometimes doing field tours and chatting about our upcoming activities. Mosaic's also sharing information through Sprout Lake newsletter, whether it's the summer or the winter. Then we do community tours generally for the areas that we start up, just so that folks are aware of our activities and the values that we're managing, recreation trails and whatever else. And then again, the notification of activities is really key for when we start up, just to manage activities safely. And then the last thing I'll mention here is we do have next harvest date of sometime late this year. So we'll be working through that process again and sharing information when our area planners decide where we're going to construct road or harvest, likely in December or January. Next slide, please. Access Refresh Initiative. So this was an exciting initiative we had last year. Public survey, basically asking communities and individuals, local government, regional government, to complete a survey, and we thought we'd get a couple thousand responses, and ended up getting 7,600 responses, which is really, really valuable to hear what is working with our access program and what we need to improve on. So certainly took a lot of time to go through all that information, sift through it, figure out where the opportunities are. But we've also hired 2 independent consultants to go through that information, look at our access program, and figure out what we can do to improve, and the opportunities that we can take advantage of in consideration of our land base, but also wildfire risk, liabilities, illegal dumping, and operational needs as well. So they're currently talking to some external stakeholders, gathering a bit more information, but we're hoping to be able to pilot a few things here this spring and do a few more things after that. So there's more to come, but really exciting to look at how we're looking at recreation, public access, and what we can do to improve on in that area, and also recognizing the things we're doing well on top of that. So next slide, please. So firewood, everybody asks me how we're doing for community firewood. So this year, again, want to thank Director Cote for providing firewood permits. So I went through the ones this year. I think there was over 50. I lost track after that, but certainly lots of firewood loads from the recent harvest. So I think that was mostly in January, a little bit in February, but Mosaic is certainly happy to support the community and the interest in firewood. I know firewood can be really tough to get, and certainly nice that it's close here. So this is a photo actually from last year, not from this year, but anyways, glad that it's working out in that way. So this is my last slide. So wanted to talk about community partnerships. Certainly this year is challenging with tariffs and markets and everything else, but we continue to show up in the community with the relationships we have with all the different groups and partnerships that we've built over the years. So we generally support each year more than 150 different community groups with close to $1 million each year. And that funding really goes towards community, environmental, and educational initiatives. For anybody in the room that is looking to submit something to our sponsorship and donations committee, it's a really easy one-page form to fill out from our website. So always appreciate people sharing that with different folks in the community if there's interest. But, you know, these are just a few examples of groups that we support in the Alberni Valley, and certainly proud to do it this year. I sit on the sponsorship and donations committee, and obviously it's an important part in giving back to communities. So with that, I think that's my last slide. Just want to thank everybody for your time, and if there's any questions, happy to answer them. Yes, it is.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah.
What is the center? Oh. 50 different ideas of what you have, right? But it is, it's also.
So I can maybe start. So the question was, what are the plans for the bomber base, I think, essentially. And so I don't think anything is changing with the bomber base. You know, I think it's been, you know, I've been with Mosaic for 5 years, and I don't think anything's really changed dramatically with the agreement, but I think it's been a pretty long-standing agreement and obviously a great community asset. So Frank, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much detail I can add. So just to preface this, I started with Mosaic, I guess, about 8 months ago. And so a lot of my time has been spent trying to absorb and understand all the different projects we have on the go, including these lands. And so there's a lot of layers. What I'm finding, going through all the files, there's a lot of layers associated with the property. And so I've been basically going through the research stage, if you will, trying to make sure I understand who the stakeholders are. So I've been having discussions with staff, elected officials, First Nations, to figure out, okay, well, like what are the, what are the concerns of the community. Ultimately, as we move forward with our planning for the site, there will be a public engagement process. Again, just because we understand that this property itself is very important to the community. And so we want to make sure that, whatever plan we come forward with, I don't know what that's going to look like at this point in time, but whatever we come forward with will be done in association with consultation with the community, the nation, and
So just to clarify.
Yeah. Yeah, so as Colin mentioned, nothing's going to change in the short term. And so as I understand it, there's sort of this ongoing short-term lease arrangement with him. And so, yeah, within, in the short term, nothing really is going to change from what you see today. And even if there was some change, certainly we understand the importance of the site. I know that I've had some discussions with the president, the new president of the community association, and he's expressed some concerns with me, and so I know he's away as we speak. But when we come back, we'll be chatting further to ensure that this building and the amenities associated with it are maintained.
But to be honest, the building, one thing, but water.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. There's a lot of potential, and certainly we want to make sure that whatever comes forward, like I say, the trick in all this is trying to find that balance so that it provides for the needs of the community as a whole. Mosaic and its iterations, Timber West and Timberlands, as a company, we've been around for a long time. A lot of our employees live on the island. And so I can speak for them, I can speak for myself that, whatever project we bring forward, we want to make sure that as a company, we're proud of it. But just importantly, we want to make sure that the community is proud of it too, because my background is in community planning. And I always say, we're not planning for the folks in this room. We're actually planning for our kids and their kids, right? And I always say that, when I go and show my kids a project that I've been involved with, I want them to say, wow, this is great, Dad, as opposed to, man, what were you thinking at the time? It's an iterative process, and yeah, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be baby steps all the way through, and we want to make sure that we get it right, whatever that is at the end of the day. Oh yeah, that I know.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just have a, as you go up through stuff, should you have to deal with it. It's a little province, BCX, and you have to deal with.
They can be, so the question was what kind of acts or legislation applies to our private managed forest lands? So some people believe that there's, very, very limited legislation that applies to our private land. But there are provincial and federal legislation that applies. So, Federal Fisheries Act would be one that's federal. Drinking Water Protection Act is another. The Heritage Conservation Act. So there's more than 30 acts and regulations that apply to our lands. And then there's a lot of other things that we do, voluntarily through different types of certification. And then our professionals also have discretion to, make certain prescriptions that are voluntary and managing certain values. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
It's just you gotta have people who work on it to that.
Yeah. So when our area planners, so for the recent harvest, for example, that occurred through December and January, before they even set foot into the woods or into the field, they have a long checklist that they go through. There's more than 100 different items they have to check or consider. So that could be the Heritage Conservation Act, could be things related to safety, could be things related to our fish streams or non-fish streams. And so they go through a big process before they even go into the field and consider, how all those values will be managed appropriately. So yeah, thank you. Okay.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you.
About going out on a tour with Mosaic up to the top of the hump, and it was a couple of years ago, and they were showing us a dump site where people had dumped garbage off. And as we were talking there with the security guy, a truck pulls in beside us and backs up and starts unloading. They just walked over and said, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah. It just shows what happens out there. And, thank you for being such a really good community-minded partner with all that you do. The firewood, it's greatly appreciated. And the notifications and working with the community. So
Right.
Just very much thank you for coming and being a part. And, Frank, for coming and, talking about what everybody at Sproat Lake is talking about, this property. So, yeah, thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you. Thanks for sticking around, everybody. I just wanted to give an update on the Sproat River weir plates and the sweep. The plates were taken out in the fall and they will be put back again. And Joe Lamoureux sits on the SOMAS fish flow committee with myself and other people, BC Hydro and fisheries and a bunch. And we've made it a priority for this group that flood and drought is important to the residents of Sproat Lake, not just for fisheries. So we're going to be getting this group going again. It's closed down for the winter, but it'll be coming again soon. With the amount of snow that's dumped in the last couple of days, it's amazing. But I'm sure that we're going to still be facing a drought this summer. I think there's not the snowpack that we need. So just wanted people to be aware that we are working on the wear plates being taken out, put back in, and it's a part of the plan. All the permits are in place now that weren't in place before that caused problems, but that's been taken care of. And thanks, Joe, for being part of that. Also, new business, the Alberni Valley Health Recruitment and Retention. The regional district is working with with all agencies regarding health recruitment and retention for our valley. Our home hospital kind of shut down a little bit. The ICU did for a short bit. We're in a crisis. Like every week, I'm sure they have, they're doing everything they can to get doctors and nurses and specialists here to make sure our hospital's open. But the regional district is doing as much as we can to work with agencies, and there's plans in the works. So I don't really need to say much more than that, I don't think. But just know that we're working on it, and we understand that this is a problem for us all because we need to have our hospital working. Thank you. And the last thing is we're going to do, Sproat Lake Community Association is going to do offer another group water test Monday, May 11th. And that's it. And does everybody have their name in for the door prize? Put your name in. Yeah. And thank you for those